Hello, everyone. My name's Richie. I also have Pedro here with me. We'll wait a minute or two to let people funnel in. Thank you so much for joining today. This is our product updates webinar. We run this monthly. All the product update webinars are recorded and they're put on our YouTube channel right after or a day after the webinars are done. And we also do these webinars in I want to say 4 languages now or five. We do them in five. We do them in English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, and Italian. Um, like I said, we'll wait for a minute before we get started to let people funnel in, and then we'd love to chat about what's new in the product. Alrighty. Another minute while we wait. Today we have a bunch of stuff to cover. Let me see if I can share my screen. Can you guys, Pedro, can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, cool. We have a bunch of stuff to cover. Thank you everyone for joining in today for the webinar. We're going to talk about our the changes that we've made. Actually, not just changes, we're changing the format of this webinar a little bit. Today, we're going to deep dive into some of the features and also talk about what's changed in that feature so that you get more value out of these webinars. This is what our team heard from some of you when you responded to our newsletters. So that's what we're going to get into. As always, this webinar is getting recorded. It will be put up on our YouTube channel a day after the webinar is done. If you have any questions, and we really welcome questions, at the bottom of your screen in Zoom, you'd see a Q&A box. If you ask a question there, we'll try to answer either during the presentation itself or right after. Also, if you ask a question, I think last time someone had asked us for the ability to see other people's questions. So I do see that in our webinar now. If you ask a question, others can also see your question. Having said that, you can also ask a question anonymously if you're not fully sure. Again, my name's Richie. I'm one of the co-founders at PriceLabs. I also have Pedro here with me, who handles our data science team. And so if for any complex questions about how pricing works and anything that we touch, Pedro will be here to help. And I also have Neha here with me. Neha looks after marketing at PriceLabs and is like writes the newsletters that you get about product updates and also organizes this webinar. So very excited and looking forward to a fun and engaging session. Again, if you have questions, feel free to ask, and the call is getting recorded. Cool. Moving to what's new and what is it that we're going to touch on today. Number one thing that we're going to touch on is portfolio analytics. We're going to talk a little bit about what is portfolio analytics, how to use it, and also we'll touch base on what's changed in portfolio analytics. Number two, we're going to talk about mapping. If you've not used mapping before, we're going to talk about why some people use mapping, how it can save you time, how it's more efficient, and also your cost of PriceLabs. Using PriceLabs can be a little bit lower, but it's a double-edged sword. Number three, new integrations will not spend a lot of time on that. And then time permitting, if you have any other questions, we can take those. We have an hour saved for this webinar. So we're already 5 minutes in, so I'll get started. I do have a quick poll because I do want to know how many of you use portfolio analytics or are familiar with it. So I'm just launching that poll. If you can, I think it should come up on your screen. If you can answer that, that would be super, super helpful for me. Okay. Waiting for 5 more seconds here. Okay, I think it's fairly stable now. No new answers. It's better than what I had expected. About 35% of you already use portfolio analytics, which is great. But also there are 65% of you who don't use portfolio analytics. So that's an opportunity for us to share something new with you guys. So I'm excited about that. And you can quickly see the results of the poll here. All right. Starting, Pedro, can you confirm if you still see my PowerPoint? Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Portfolio analytics, essentially, it looks at your booking trends that we either get from your PMS or Airbnb. We do integrate with VRBO for pricing, but unfortunately, we don't get the reservation data from VRBO presently. We're working on it, but we get it from Airbnb. And if you're using us via a PMS, we get all of your reservation data that flows into your PMS. PMS stands for Property Management System. So that's something that we take the reservation data and we make it into easy to digest charts and graphs and trends so that you can analyze the data of your properties better. There are 3 key use cases that people use portfolio analytics for. Tracking and analyzing your property's KPIs, both at year-on-year level, weekly, daily, at whatever level you want to track and analyze how, if you want to compare one period against another. And as we get into the product, you'll see it a little bit more. Number 2, if you have a bunch of properties, you can use portfolio analytics to identify which are some of the underperforming properties and how, and not how, but which are the underperforming properties, and so that you can tackle them fast. And number 3, it can also help you identify trends in your bookings so that you can refine your revenue management strategy, right? Now, number 2, which is discover underperforming listings and identify trends in your bookings. These are advanced level use cases. And so I would normally say if you have a bunch of listings and if you're very hands-on with your revenue management, that's when you really get into it. But tracking and analyzing your KPIs, that's important. So just about everyone should understand that. So as we go through, we'll talk a little bit about that. Now, I have some slides here. The trends by stay date. I'm actually just going to quickly talk about these slides and then dive into the product itself so that I can actually show you this information. But you'd see trends by stay date. Stay date, it's fairly straightforward, like the date when the stay happens. Based on that, we pull together various kinds of graphs, revenue, RevPAR, occupancy, etc., etc. And then you can also see them by monthly or weekly or daily or day of week. And so you can see this very, very quickly. And so you can see, hey, this year I'm doing better in terms of revenue, but maybe not as good in terms of occupancy, that kind of analysis, so that you understand what's happening with your properties. We have this bubble chart, which, like I said, more advanced of a usage, but we have this bubble chart where you can see what's happening with your properties in comparison to either market or something else. And there's a lot of data that's packed into this bubble chart, and people use it very, very differently. But what you can do is, hey, I am seeing all of these listings that are in red, and I want to look at and see what's happening. Ignore where it says test listing, test listing. It's a screenshot from our test account. In your accounts, it would have a real name itself, right? And then number 3 use case that we talked about, and again, I will talk about this once we get into the product itself, right? But number 3rd use case that we talk about is where you can identify, one, are there certain dates where your pricing, where your occupancy is a lot higher than the market or lower than the market, and also your pickup information. Are you getting a lot more bookings in comparison to the market, right? And as I dive into the product itself, it will become a lot more clearer. And then finally, what's changed is we have added length of stay information and booking window information. This used to exist, but so far we only were showing you the last 30 days. Now we show you the last 2 years on length of stay and booking window. And the utility of this is when you use, say, minimum stay customizations, or when you use some discounts around last minute bookings or in your occupancy based adjustments, you're able to tackle that better. I know that's a mouthful of everything that I have said, right? But if you have any questions, then happy to answer. Feel free to keep them coming. I see one question where someone's asked, new to PriceLabs, would you recommend I take other on-demand videos first? 100%. I would recommend you to take the 101 training first. And with that, I'm going to hop into my PriceLabs account. Actually, I'm going to log out of this account. Do you still see my PriceLabs screen, Pedro?
Yeah. I do.
Yeah, I'm actually going to log into another account. And so for the person who had asked if we recommend taking a 101 training first, if you're on your PriceLabs account, you'd see this hat kind of a thing at the bottom. If you click that, one, our team is constantly updating various kind of product updates, product walkthroughs. So if you click that, that can help you use PriceLabs better. But if you also go into trainings, you'd see 101 and 201. If you click 101, it'll take you to the various times when we run the 101 training, and you can accordingly register for that 101 training, so that you can use it, so that you can learn how to use PriceLabs better. So that'll be my recommendation. Coming back into PriceLabs and going into portfolio analytics. Now, one thing that I do want to clarify is not all of you will have access to portfolio analytics. We are working with various property management systems to get portfolio analytics live with those property management systems. We are live with Airbnb, and we are working with VRBO to get it live. How do you access portfolio analytics is on the top black bar in PriceLabs. You'll see dynamic pricing, which is the key product that most of our users use. But you'd also see portfolio analytics. It's a free to use tool so that you can analyze what's happening with your business. And on the left-hand side, we have certain help and video guides here. If you click the help article, you'll also get a sense of what each of these graphs represent and do. I'm going to quickly chat about it. At first, what you can quickly see is key performance indicators. Oftentimes, you might think about, hey, how has my October month been? And how did it, for example, compare to September month? I can quickly run a KPI report like this, where I can see my revenue this is dummy data. So my revenue is not 1.28 million. This is completely dummy data, but 1.28 million in revenues, and it was up $24,000. My lead time, which is how far in advance do I get a booking, was also up. My length of stay decreased only slightly, so not meaningfully. Right, my occupancy was up by a percentage point. The number of reservations that I got was up, but the RevPAR, which is the revenue for each available night, right, actually dropped. So that's not as good a metric, right? But what this can quickly allow you to do is compare periods. For example, I've just compared October to September, but I could also go in and compare last year October. If I just wanted to see how my metrics were doing last year compared to this year, right? This is just poor data, but yeah, so you could, for example, in this, you can see in 2022, I've made a lot more revenue. My lead times are higher. My length of stay is lower, not as good a thing. My occupancy is lower, not as good a thing. But you get the general idea, right? So the intent being, you can quickly take a snapshot so that you can use it with like you can quickly understand what's happening with your business. At the top of this, you'd also see an ability to filter via groups or via listings or via tags, and also filter by the listings that are turned on, right? So that you can filter for the specific information. I do know some people who, for example, some property managers who work with owners, they take a screenshot right here and send it out to owners in emails, right? The next section touches on trends by stay date. I missed this, by the way. This KPI is by stay date, but you could also look at it by booking creation date. So next is trends by stay date. Now you could look at monthly, weekly, daily, or day of week. Fairly straightforward. Monthly, you see months at the bottom. Weekly, you'd start seeing the 52 weeks at the bottom of the screen. Daily, you'd literally see the 365 days at the bottom, and day of week, you'd just see like what your day of week trends are, right? So that you can understand what's happening in your business. And what you can see is you can see past 3 years and future 1 year. So in this graph, I quickly see, and if I click on any of these, I can remove those lines. So you see the 2020 line disappeared. If I wanted to remove the 2023 line, if I click on it, the 2023 line disappears. So what I can quickly see is my revenues in 2022 have been consistently higher than what they were in 2021. Similarly, if I can compare occupancies here, so what I can see is my occupancies were in similar range, but in 2022, my occupancies are lower. And so you can this is a dummy data, but hopefully with this, you can try to get more insights about your business. And if you click this, there are a bunch of different metrics that you can see. We've created this view so that you can compare a bunch of metrics together. For example, I can see my revenue is high, but my occupancy is lower, right? Which is what I see here, which is my RevPAR was also higher and my average book rate was also higher. If I wanted to just quickly see number of active units, what you'd see is that in 2022, I had a lot more active units than I had in 2021, which explains why my revenue was higher, right? So you can see a bunch of these graphs together so that if you want to analyze data, you can analyze that data easily, right? And if you wanted to download any of this data, you can also download this data as charts or just the raw data by clicking here. So you can download the CSV or download the charts CSV, right? Cool. Anything to add, Pedro, from your end on these graphs, or any insights that you've seen people use or draw?
No, but I think maybe I mean, the RevPAR is like a underutilized metric, maybe like you said, right? It normalizes by the number of units. So if you have a large portfolio and you have a changing portfolio, right? So like every year you have a slightly different number of units, for example, it's a nice way of kind of comparing your metrics over time, right? So RevPAR kind of normalizes your data by the number of nights available to rent. So it doesn't normalize by some other stuff, right? Which would be like you might acquire listings that are of higher quality or lower quality over time, but it's a nice metric and it comes right from the hotel industry. So it's a really used metric now. Oh, okay, that's it.
Got it. Pedro, you spoke very fast and you understand RevPAR, but you have to slow down and tell us what is RevPAR and why does it matter?
Sure. So RevPAR is revenue per available room. So it's the revenue divided by the number of rooms that you have to rent, right? So the reason to do that, if you just have one unit, it really doesn't make that much sense to look at RevPAR because you can just look at the booked rate and that's essentially the same thing. But if you have multiple units or and you have blocks, right? You can imagine that some days, some months, let's talk about months. Some months you might have like 30 nights to rent for this unit, but next month you decide to do some maintenance and you spend half the month doing maintenance, right? So now you only have 15 nights to sell. So instead of dividing the revenue number by 30, you would divide it by 15 for the other month. So and that you can think about the number of units available as a product of many operational things, right? Maybe you have the maintenance was one thing, but you can think about growing inventory. You're adding listings to your portfolio, so your number of listings changes. But the idea is to normalize it by the number of listings available to be booked.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so RevPAR is like a phenomenal metric, especially if you have multiple rooms or multiple properties, so that you can really try to understand what's your revenue per available room or property. So for example, as a property manager or an owner, if you have, I don't know, 10 properties, last year, maybe you only had large properties, so your revenue probably and RevPAR was probably very high, versus next year, say previously you had 4 bedrooms and now you've added 1 bedroom to your mix, your RevPAR can tend to drop. And so that helps you understand how your business is doing a little bit better. In most practical sense, RevPAR generally is a multiplier of your revenue times your occupancy, right? So if your revenue is too high and if your occupant, because anytime you're trying to increase your revenue, it's possible that you might take an impact on your occupancy. But as long as your RevPAR stays higher than your previous periods, then you're doing well in general. Hopefully that makes sense. The next thing that we wanted to talk about, and if I can find my screen here. So sorry, that was quite a bit to cover, but we wanted to talk about how you can compare year-on-year metrics and some of these metrics so that you understand how to use this data better. Of course, everyone's use case is different, but this is where you can start to realize and understand what's happening. I'll give you a practical example from earlier today. Earlier today, I was looking at someone's property where they were like, "I've not received any bookings in the month of October," right? But when we went into their data, we saw their revenues for October were higher, their occupancy for October was higher, right? And eventually down here, we have trends by booking creation date, which is when the bookings came in. For this person, their bookings had come in September already. So while they had not received any bookings in October for that October period, it was just because their lead time had completely shifted. In 2021, they were getting bookings the week before, but in 2022, they had received bookings in September, so a lot longer lead time. And what that made them feel is, oh, I'm not receiving any bookings because for the last 15 days or 20 days, I've not received any bookings. But if they really looked at their revenue numbers, their occupancy numbers, they were still higher than their 2021. So while it's good to go by gut of what's happening, these metrics and data can help you understand how your properties are doing compared to your prior years. And also when you look at booking creation dates, it can help you understand the velocity of booking, right? So the difference between these two graphs, this is by stay date, which is in October, what the stays have happened, versus scrolling down, this is by booking creation date. So in October, how many bookings have come in for any future periods, right? Could be just the next day, but could also be 2023, right? So helps you understand how your properties are pacing as well. And again, in this also, you can double click and you can see various kinds of graphs. You can also see average LOS, you can have average book price, etc., etc. Cool. Before I dive into listing level metrics, Pedro, do you want to take questions? All right. Is the revenue numbers from Airbnb the gross number charged to the customer or the net number paid to the host? Do you know the answer to this, Pedro?
Yeah, Airbnb is net paid to the host.
Okay, got it. Cool. Thank you. Nathan, it does vary. It does vary by the connection that you have. But if you're directly connected to Airbnb, then it is the net that is paid to the host, right? But if you're with certain PMSs, it could vary. I don't know if we have it documented in a help article somewhere, but if we don't, reach out, click this question mark, click chat, and our team will be able to help answer specific to your PMS. But in case of Airbnb, it is net. Then the next question is this available with standard plan? Yes, this is actually even before the standard plan. Portfolio Analytics is a free to use insights tool. All that we are doing is we're taking your data and putting it into easy to understand graphs here. So it's a free to use tool. Even if you're not using dynamic pricing, this still works, right? But you do have to connect your properties. Cool. Is it taking lodging revenue into account or including taxes and cleaning? Varies, Keith, varies by the PMS that we are connected with, because some PMSs are able to split that when they send it to us. PMS is property management system. They're able to split it when they send it to us. If they split it, we generally take lodging revenue. But for Airbnb, do you know the answer, Pedro? If it taxes, I know it's not included, but cleaning, do you know?
Cleaning, it is included, yeah. Tax is not included. Yeah.
Okay. For Airbnb, cleaning is included, but taxes are not included. All right. Have some. Okay.
There's a question by Gonzalo about owner stays net out of the occupancy calculations, and we keep seeing that, but it's because the reservation data comes in different formats depending on the PMS, right? So again, it depends a little bit on the PMS, but for all PMSs, we make an effort to exclude blocks from the occupancy calculations, right? Because they don't generate revenue. And a lot, I think for most of our users, we do exclude blocks. So it's still good to check with our support staff, but for Airbnb, unfortunately, we do not exclude blocks, but for other PMSs, we do.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. And then there are some feature sessions. It takes quite a while to scroll through dates over long periods. A session would be to potentially amend the date legend. So you can scroll back and forth through years and months easier. Scroll through dates. Yongo, I may need more information on the question, like the session. So if you can add some more details on the session. I'm not sure which dates are you talking about. So some specific there would be helpful. Keith, for your specific question around Guesty, reach out to our support team and we can answer what we parse for Guesty. All right. Is this a free tool or the one that must be paid? Karen, it's a free tool. If for some reason the data is not accurate for you, please do please do reach out to us so that we can look into what's happening.
I
Cool.
think for market metrics, we only show market metrics for listings that are active or have been recently active. So I think that's one thing that you'll see, Karen. Yeah.
Got it. Cool. Let me quickly dive into the listing level metrics graph. This is complicated, but an extremely powerful graph. I only recommend this if you have decently large portfolios to look into this. What you're looking at here is listing occupancy. So each bubble is a listing. So in this account, I have thousands of listings. So each bubble is a listing. And then at the bottom of this screen, I have the market occupancy. So if you have, for example, looked at health indicators, it's the same market occupancy that we are pulling here as well. And what you're seeing is for the month of November, I'm comparing my listing occupancy against market occupancy, and the color that I'm using is for score. And so this listing, for example, has very low listing occupancy, but the market is fairly occupied. If I wanted to look at certain listings and see which one to attack first, I would look at here, right? If you have few properties, you may just want to look at it on your dynamic pricing dashboard, where you have where you can quickly see the health numbers. I'm just going to hop into the dashboard here. Again, like I said, on this account, I have a lot of properties, but what you'd see here is these health numbers. If you have a few properties, it's just generally easier to just go by your properties here and just see them here. But if you have a lot of properties, you may want to see, okay, hey, here are the bad performing properties. I may want to tackle them, right? And you can also then group these properties by color, city, group, or whatever. So for example, if I do them by group, you'll see that number change. So I can see like, are there certain groups that are performing bad altogether, right? Or if I had listings in multiple cities, I can group them by cities to saying, are there certain cities that are performing bad? And I can not just compare my listing occupancy, but I can compare the listing occupancy against various kind of metrics. So for example, listing occupancy versus my listing pickup. So I can see if the listing, are there certain listings that are doing good or bad? I can also see days since last booked. So for example, these listings that haven't been booked in 50 days, I may want to see what's happening with them. Maybe it's pricing, but realistically, it could also be what is their distribution. Maybe they're disconnected. Even these which have been booked for last 20 days, I may want to look at them differently, right? So it's a very, very powerful way to look at what's happening in your business, right? But again, only recommended if you have a lot of listings, right? And then if you wanted to add or remove certain columns from this table on the right hand side, you can click this and remove them very, very quickly. And again, if you wanted to download this data, you can download it, and then you can look at it on a monthly basis, where you can quickly see what's happening by various months. All right, going to take another pause. Pedro, how are we doing on questions? Anything relevant to this?
Yeah, we've got a question by James. It's asking, is your dynamic pricing informed by demand seen among PriceLabs customer or from wider data set? Or is it informed only by similar listings, right? So yeah, so dynamic pricing does not use customer data to come up with prices. And so we use just market data and your own data, right? In terms of like the listing's own occupancy. And we use all the data, or we give preference to like hyperlocal data, right? Which we call it, which means that when we detect events, for example, we're looking at a very narrow set of neighbors that you have that are closest to your listing. And to account for the difference in listing sizes, right? We weigh the data higher for bedrooms that are similar to yours, right? So for example, if we're talking about, let's say your listing is a 4-bedroom, we'll weigh the data higher for listings in the neighborhood that are in the maybe 3, 4, and 5-bedroom range, right? So similar listings to yours so that the booking patterns are comparable. So that's our strategy.
Very cool. Okay, thank you, Pedro. The last use case that I want to cover is identify, are there certain dates where you're booking faster than comp set, etc. Right now, this is the probably the most complicated, not complicated, but kind of an advanced use case. So not relevant to all. Again, if you're a large property manager, or if you're really into digging into data, you may want to consider looking into this. If you in order to use this, you should have certain market dashboards that you're already creating. If you have some market dashboards, you can look into them and you can add any comp set that you have created. You can add that to these graphs so that you can quickly see in terms of price. And again, you can filter by groups, etc., so that this chart is filtered. But you can see, are there certain properties that are doing well or worse on price than relative to the market. You can also see what your occupancies look like in relation to the market. And then finally, not as well seen, but let me remove the occupancies here. If you see here, what you can also see is the pickup, where you can see, are there certain dates that you are pickup means in the last 7 days for November 14th, what percent of your occupancy has come in versus the market's occupancy, right? So on November 14th, your market has picked up 4% of the occupancy versus you have only picked up 0.34% occupancy. You may want to tweak certain things. But again, this is a very, very advanced use case. On this, by the way, you can also see market occupancy and your occupancy. And if you click this white dot and if you scroll it back, you can also see what the occupancies for market and your own look like in the past. Again, this is not a great example, but here, if you see, for example, I can see I am generally trending fairly high on occupancy, except for this period, and I might want to see why that might be. Or here, the rates are significantly high for comp set, but maybe my prices are not as high. I may want to see what might be happening, right? Generally, PriceLabs will pick up this, but maybe something very unique to your comp set, right? Again, not something that I generally recommend to most users, unless you have hundreds of properties and you're really diving into this kind of data set. Would I only recommend doing this? Cool. And then now coming to what's actually changed about PriceLabs is previously we showed you length of stay and booking windows for the last 30 days. But what you can again now do is look at much longer periods. So for example, I want to look at my listings and only for the summer period, July to August, by I actually wanted to look at it by stay dates. So if I want to look at it by stay dates in the summer period, what I can see is that most of my bookings came in within the last 4 weeks. There were some bookings that came in 1 to 2 months out, but really 2 months plus. Very few bookings came in. So if I was thinking about discounting strategy or getting paranoid, I won't get too paranoid about my July to August if 2 months out I was not booked, right? Do note that this is only specific to your listings. Market may behave differently, and for that, I'd recommend looking into market dashboards, right? But this allows you to quickly understand what's happening in terms of booking window, and also understand what's happening in terms of length of stay. So in summer, I'm getting a lot more of those 2 days and 3-4 days bookings. There are some 5 to 6 day bookings, but not a lot of one night bookings, right? And this might be a factor of, if you don't allow one night stays, you will not see one night bookings in your data. So again, market data could tell you a different story, but at least this way you understand your own data better. Oftentimes, I get on call with some customers and they're like, oh, we take on average 2-night bookings, or we have 2-night minimum stays. But when we go and look at, say, their summer months, we end up seeing that on average they get 3 to 4 night or 5 to 6 night stays, which means is what that means is that you should try to push for those longer stays, particularly when you're far out from those dates, so that you can get longer bookings. And as you get closer to the date is when you drop it, so that you're not booking your calendar with the short 2-night stays, but nice chunky 3-4 night 5-6 night stays, right? So it's good to look at your data and understand what's happening. Again, these use cases that we're describing are if you really want to dive into data and understand it better, assuming you're on this webinar, so you are interested in learning about that. So if you have any questions around this, let us know. Cool. That was on the portfolio analytics side. Pedro, did I miss anything else that you'd want to touch base on?
No, I think that was it. I think the last part that you talked about is super important, right? It's about like knowing your portfolio, right? Like if you want to like, if you're unsure about some customization that you want to do, like I don't know, should I be this, like Richie said, should I be worried about my bookings and over the next 2 months, or how should I change this customization, this last minute prices one way or another? I think these are like really critical things to know before you do any of that, if you like want to spend the time studying your property. So knowing what are your booking windows depending on the season, knowing what are your length of stays is critical. And this is a really easy way to get some insight into that using our historical data. So I think this is great. Yeah.
Cool, fantastic. All right. The next update that we had is mapping related. I'm going to show you what mapping actually is, and then come back and talk about the feature or the slides here, because the slides are very, very well done. But I do want to show you what it looks like. So I'm on my review prices page. Now on various pages, you'd see this kind of a button. If you've used mapping before, you're probably familiar the use cases of mapping, which is either you're connecting PriceLabs directly to Airbnb and VRBO or multiple PMSs, and you want to map those listings together so that we can price those properties together. Or you have similar, like you're more a hotel or resort style where you want to price those listings exactly together. So you want to map those listings. In various parts, you'd see this kind of a button. If you click that, you'll see a parent listing, which is the main listing that has the market data and that we price. And you can select that. And with that, next, you'd be able to select certain child listings. These child listings are based on, they have to be close to your property within the next, I want to say 50 meters or 100 meters. If they're that close to each other, you can map them together. Note that once you map these properties, all of their pricing, their customizations, etc., copy over, right? And so you want to be careful about this, but you can map properties like this together. You'll see this in review prices page. You'll also see this on multi-calendar and on managed listings. I'm going to go back into the PowerPoint, because as I was saying this, I realized that I have not done a good job of explaining what mapping is. So let's quickly look into this. The number one use case that people use mapping for is if they are using PriceLabs both with Airbnb and with VRBO, or they're using PriceLabs with 2 different PMSs. You can think of mapping as linking your prices together, right? So that you only have to make changes on one of your properties, that's your parent property, and everything else automatically copies over to your child property, which is VRBO. This is only if you're not using a property management system, or if you're some users are connected to 2 different property management systems, right? This way, you're only using PriceLabs on one property. you're making changes on one property, everything copies over. If you sync one property, the other property syncs together with it. And you don't have to make adjustments to two different places. It allows us to maintain rate parity between two properties. And what it also does is, if you're using it for this kind of a use case where it's two different, it's the same property on two different channels, we also reduce rates. So if you were using PriceLabs with two properties, in US, our charges are 34.98, so 19.99 for the first listing and 14.99 for the second listing. But if it was mapped like this, it would be 19.99 for the first listing and only $1 for the second. Only this is only applicable when it's two different same listing on two different systems. So Airbnb and VRBO, for example, right? The next use case that people often use this for is when they have a multi-unit configuration, right? By multi-unit configuration, what I mean is if they have a resort style or a hotel style. So think of it as I have a resort with 30 villas that are exactly similar, interchangeable. I can take the guest from one room into one villa to another, and they won't really care what it is, or like they won't really know it's any different, right? In such cases, you can map these properties together. You'll have to reach out to our support team to be able to do this and explain your use case, but you can map these listings together so that we're pricing them together and there is a price parity between these listings. And then third use case is if you're switching from one system to one property management system to another, or from Airbnb to a property management system like Hospitable or Guesty for hosts or something like that, right? You can use this mapping method to quickly transfer your settings from your one system to another system. So those are three use cases that people generally use mapping for. And so like this slideshow shows, you can click that map button and it shows up on manage pricing, manage listings page, on review prices page, and on multi-calendar page. And previously you could only map one listing at a time. Now you can map multiple listings in one go. So for one parent, you can assign multiple child listings and map them together. So that's the large two updates that we've had this month. One on the portfolio analytics, hopefully that was helpful, and number two on mapping. And then finally, we have two new integrations. We're constantly adding new integrations. So if we're not integrated with your system, do let us know. Reach out to us at support@pricelabs.co, and we'll be happy to help. Cool. Those were our product updates. Anything that Pedro, were there any questions that you were answering along, or any questions that we should answer?
Yeah, I answered just one question while we were talking, but there's another question by Andrea, which is kind of related more to dynamic pricing, right? Which is he's looking to know, like, could we consider other features, right, in terms of to do dynamic pricing? Because right now, Andrea, like, it would kind of answer your question already. We only consider the number of bedrooms as the factor to determine if two listings are similar. And we are considering other things, right? Like you said, like some amenities might be important. They might be market specific, right? So it gets a little bit more complicated, but we are considering these for some future upgrades, either on dynamic pricing or on base price help, or as a way to help people find similar listings and market dashboards. But none of this is in production yet. So my recommendation today, right, if we had to use what we have on hand, would be to use market dashboards to find similar questions and similar listings. And in market dashboards, you can filter listing. You can see what are the listings if they have certain amenities do show up in market dashboards, and we're about to expose a lot more amenities in market dashboards, so you can filter, like, show me the listings that have a pool or something like that. So yeah, that's currently possible in a limited set of amenities, but it's going to be expanded really soon. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Any other questions, team, about portfolio analytics, about mapping, or anything else that we can answer? We still have about 10 minutes here. If not, we can let you go early. Again, this is recorded. It will be uploaded on our YouTube channel tomorrow. All right. I see no questions coming in. Um, oh, now I see suddenly questions coming in. Um, all right. Um, if my listing on Airbnb is USD, but in VRBO, it's CAD, how to match the different currency price? Difficult one. Normally, I would say try to keep those two prices, two currencies same. If you don't have the currency same, I would not recommend mapping because that can get very, very complicated. Especially like if you add an override on your Airbnb listing in USD uh, and it copies over in CAD. USD and CAD may not be as hard as because those like fluctuate fairly closely, but yeah, for Pedro.
I have a suggestion, which is we have a customization under the advanced tab to do pricing offset, and the pricing offset, and so that means like Richard said, it adds a little bit of complexity, right? Because you're going to have one listing with a customization and one without a customization, which is usually not how you want to do mapped listings. You usually want to have all the customizations the same, but you can have different customizations even on map listings. So once you add this offset, it applies this offset on all of your prices, right? So it's a you can say like, hey, the dollar is 10% higher than the whatever the Canadian dollar, the US dollar is higher than the Canadian dollar, or apply a 10% offset on the Canadian dollar prices. And so that's one way of doing it.
That's fair. That's fair. And again, if you guys can still see my screen, if you click this question mark, and if you search for VRBO and Airbnb here, I think the right thing should pop up. Here, if you look into this, the step 5 talks about using pricing offsets, right? And that's kind of normally people use the pricing offsets for saying on Airbnb, my service fee is 15%, and on VRBO, my service fee is say 20%. So I'm going to add that service fee separately, right? But you can also use it to do USD versus CAD, kind of a difference in the pricing offset. Thank you, Pedro. All right, there was one more question that I saw come in. All right, it's difficult to, no, it's the same thing. Are there any features to compare similar listings, pricing trends, settings against another? Yes, I think, Yongo, what you're referring to is market dashboards. So you can um, create a market dashboard, which will allow you to, and within the market dashboard, you can create a comp set. I'm saying certain keywords so that you can pick those up and look at it. We'll also run a market dashboards webinar separately, but you can create a market dashboard, and within a market dashboard, create a comp set, which allows you to look at listings that are very, very specific. And once you have that done, within your even within your review prices page, and when you're looking at a listings neighborhood data, and I'm saying a bunch of jargon, which depending on how long have you used PriceLabs for, you may or may not be familiar. But so step 1, create a market dashboard. Step 2, create certain comp set that is specific to your listing, and you can create comp sets like allows pets and has beachfront and has an EV charger and that kind of that granularity. Then you can come into review prices for your property, go into neighborhood data, and within neighborhood data, you can the comp set that you have created, you can pull that comp set within the neighborhood data. And it's being a tad bit slow for me here. But within this, if I click this, we automatically create a comp set for you, which is nearby listings, but you could also say, hey, I want to pull it from market dashboards, where I've created a market dashboard for Florida, and I want to use a comp set that I've created, which is say VRBO's 3-bedroom properties, right? So that's kind of how you can get specific. Note that this is for benchmarking and not pricing. For pricing, we create our own smart comp sets, which is looking at 300 to 350 closest properties to your property. And we don't just want to look at very similar properties. We want to look at different sizes of properties so that we understand what's happening in the market. So for pricing, we use our own comp set, but for benchmarking, you can create a comp set and you can see how their prices look like versus your own price. And if you're not familiar with this, I would highly recommend doing a 201 webinar, because I believe we now touch on this in the 201 webinar. Cool. Pedro, what else?
You'll go on pricing trends. I think that's what you're talking about. There's a question from Kurt about kind of a practical question about like not being able to like open their market dashboard. So Kurt, so if your issue like doesn't get solved by my answer, please reach out and support. But what can happen is when you first create a market dashboard, it can take up to 10 minutes for it to show up for the first time. That's how long it takes for our algorithm to like get all the data and do the processing and everything. So on that first time, it will require you to refresh your page at like your browser after like those 10 minutes, and then you'll get to see the show dashboard on the right, like Richie has there. So you hover there, it's green, and then you click and then it opens. But if you stop subscribing to the market dashboard, then you will not be able to open it anymore. So you'll see this, please subscribe. So what I do recommend, if you have subscribed to a market dashboard and you want to keep the data for yourself without subscribing, you can also download the market dashboard as a PDF and keep it forever, right? I mean, for reference, right? There's a lot of good historical data there. So that's another way of using this product as well. Just download it, keep it for your own records.
Cool. In compare against market, you see market occupancy. Any chance to also get market revenue graph here? Market revenue. I guess what you really mean is ADR, because market revenue, like depending on number of properties, it could like it's not normalized. So ADR, which I guess do we have booked rates? 1 second, let me quickly see. I don't remember this anymore. 1 second, Roger. In the
we
compare
don't have
against
rates, but we have the we have ADR, right? Essentially, right? We have the
you have
the listed
ADRs,
rates.
you have listed rates, but I wonder if we don't have booked rates on Portfolio Analytics.
We don't have booked rates, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. I'm waiting this to load. On market dashboards, we definitely have when this price graph shows up. If you click this, if you allow this, you can see the median booked price. I wonder if on Portfolio Analytics, if I have a market dashboard selected. Unfortunately, it does not have the median booked price, but something that we can look to add where here, along with your graph and the price trend, like the average price trend, we can also show the median booked price, which does show up on market dashboards presently. You have to toggle it on, right? But something that we can look to add on Portfolio Analytics. Hopefully that will help, Roger. Cool. And then is there a monthly cost to subscribe to market dashboards? Yes, market dashboards are $9.99 per market, not market, but 1,000 listings if you want to track. And if you want to track 5,000 listings, that's $19.99. Again, to clarify, you don't need market dashboards if you're using PriceLabs for dynamic pricing or Portfolio Analytics. You only need market dashboards if you do want to use this compare against market section, or if in the dynamic pricing side, if you want to customize your comp set to look at a specific benchmark. Outside of that, you don't really need market dashboards unless you really want to analyze what's happening in your market. Cool. With that, we have almost come up to an end. I see one last question. Pricing trends, example, certain days of week, other listings are applying discounts.
I think that was just a clarification for the previous question.
Okay.
So
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Cool. Thank you so much for staying on, folks. Hopefully, you find these updates useful. Hopefully, you find these webinars useful. If you have any feedback, send it to Pedro or me, or actually reach out to us at support@pricelabs.co, and we'd love to hear and know how we can improve these webinars. And once again, if you're new to PriceLabs, please do attend our trainings 101 and 201, because we do go into a lot of detail about how to use dynamic pricing for PriceLabs. And then we are going to introduce a webinar series for portfolio analytics and market dashboards. So be on lookout for that. We'll reach out via email and also an in-app inside the product, a pop-up to tell you that when that's coming. Cool. Thank you so much. Would it be possible to calculate the dynamic price by selecting a group of competitors? Andre, if you're saying how to adjust rates if certain competitors are adjusting rates, we don't do that today. Generally, what we have seen is that a lot of the market is mispriced, and so we don't necessarily follow competitors. We do increase prices in 3 different ways, specifically for events, and one of that is we do look at the neighborhood data to saying if there are certain dates where we are not seeing anything in terms of occupancy in the market, but all of your competitors are increasing prices and maybe the hotels around you are increasing prices, we will increase your price, right? But we don't generally track a competitor's price and say we want to price exactly like what this person is pricing, right? It's in that kind of exceptional scenarios where we don't see anything in the market, but everyone else is increasing prices. We may consider increasing prices for those dates. Cool. Market dashboards, you can see monthly revenue. Any possibility to get this graph into compare? Oh, I understand now what you mean, Roger. We'll have to think about it, Roger. But yeah, we'll take that as feedback and see if we can incorporate it in the product. Not as quick.
If you want to do it today, Roger, it is possible to export the data from market dashboards and from portfolio analytics as a CSV file, so you can pull that all into like a spreadsheet and do your own comparisons. Not ideal, right? Having it in the product would be best, but it's possible today by exporting the data. So we give that flexibility because some users want to run their own analysis.
Absolutely. And so what Pedro's referring to here is you can click this and you can download the CSV here, draw data or charts data. And then also in market dashboards, just about everywhere you can click these pink things and you'd see a download CSV. So just about everything can be exported from PriceLabs. Cool. How do you set pricing if the market, your competitors are mispriced? Very good question. And that's something that that Pedro and the team spend a lot of time on. One of the key things that we do is we don't look at absolute price as much, and maybe Pedro, you can answer this better, but what we really look at is what's happening in terms of occupancy in the market, right? And we're really looking at what's happening in terms of occupancy in the market. If, for example, we have some customers where they were traditionally pricing at $100, and with PriceLabs now they price at $300 and still say booked. That's purely a case of extremely mispriced market in terms of occupancy trends, right? Like their markets were just really booked, and they had a lot of opportunity to increase prices. So it's not about we don't. We do spend some time tracking what's happening in terms of pricing in the market, and it has some impact on the algorithm, but a lot larger impact is from what's happening in terms of occupancies in the market. Pedro, any further clarifications on that?
No, that's it.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much. We're past the time. Thank you so much for attending and for all the questions and feedback. Take care, and we hope to see you again next month around same dates. Take care. Bye-bye.
Right.